The New York City Football Club has 7 games left to salvage the playoffs in 2023, and they're going to have to do it without Maxi Morales. We've got that and a whole lot more on NYCFC Views.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene el tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer.
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Andres Cantor has nothing on you, Roberto Abramowitz. There's Roberto. I'm glad.
Yeah, he does. He has a much bigger contract. Trust me. He makes a lot more money than I do.
Well, everybody should go on and listen to his latest call of Messi scoring for Argentina during this international break.
Last night.
Yep. So we haven't been up to training, so we don't have a real thorough update on the team, but it's certainly something to talk about. But before we get started, Roberto, and you're going to laugh at me because yes, you will. I suppose I should have known this, but I'm at a game the other day, a soccer game, a collegiate soccer game, and talking to a couple of parents of youth players that were there, and they were telling me about how they have on their phones a tracking device for their sons and daughters so that they know where they are at every minute of the day. And my initial response was, I'm appalled by that. I would never do that to my kid. But I bring it up because I now am tracking my daughter, who's 25 years old. But that's because she's here. Sammy, put this photo up. Mount Fuji in Japan. And
what?
So, yeah, she landed this morning and she's hiking right now. And I know exactly where she is because she allowed me, because she's so far away, she's going to be on this mountain. She's with a friend, but I can see exactly where she is. So I am now tracking my daughter. But I thought, I think this is a legitimate reason because, she's up on a mountain across the other side of the world, so
I'm shocked that you haven't done this before. I mean, your kids are bigger than my son, but my son's 17, and ever since he's had an iPhone, I've been tracking exactly where he is all the time. That's been turned on. He knows it's turned on, and it's for 2 different purposes. 1, to make sure he doesn't do anything stupid, and 2, if something does happen, I know exactly where he is, and I can go and do something.
I understand that part,
but no, it's I've done this all the time.
We parent differently. I think it's important that kids do stupid things. That's what they learn. You learn from being.
Oh, that's fine. I don't disagree there, except that when they do something really, really stupid, if they do, then you can go and help get them out of a jam. Although if I have told them, I said, by the way, if you get arrested for something stupid, and it is stupid, right? Then I'm not bailing you out. You can hang out. You can hang out until the next day. I ain't moving. So he knows. He knows that if it's something legit, that he gets screwed over by, then and I'm there for him. But if he does go, and let's say he does, not that he does this or anything, but let's say he jumps a turnstile or something like that, and he gets caught, and they wind up dragging him down. I'm like, you know what, dude, your problem, not mine. And I'll take care of it in the morning. Have a good night's sleep in the tombs.
Well, it's jumping a turnstile in New York City. Here in New Jersey, close to where I live, it might be hopping a fence and going onto somebody's yard where you're not allowed or something. It'd be more like that.
You hope that there are no Dobermans there.
Yeah, Dobermans
that you can't do anything about.
Dobermans, or who knows what people are using to protect their property these days. And well, it's all. I will tell you, I'm going to be turning it off when she comes back home. I'm not going to be tracking her. And imagine if somebody, I would love anyone in this audience who says, Glenn, of course you want to know where your kids are. Would you want your parents to know where you were when you were 15 years old? Forget about it, man.
I didn't have a problem, by the way. I would always tell them I wasn't that kid. I wasn't that kid getting into trouble. I really was a goody two.
Oh my God! You never
goody
wear.
two shoes or
Get
whatever.
out of here!
Yeah.
You never went anywhere. You never lied to your parents. You've never lied to your parents. That's crap. Everyone's lied to their parents.
No, I didn't have to. I just spoke with them honestly.
All right.
You were brought up differently.
You need to write a book, Roberto. I think you have a book of some sort out, but you need to write another one that focuses. No, it's John Rojas that has a book. You need to write a book that focuses on and the title of the book should be "I Never Lied to My Parents." And I'm telling you, you'll sell a lot of copies. Or either that.
One of the things that I did, and I've warned my son about this since he's 3 years old. Okay. And I said, I don't care what you do. I don't care how bad it is. I'll help you get out of that. We'll deal with that situation. If you lie to me about it, then you're going to be in huge trouble. And he always knows that the consequences for lying to me over something is a hell of a lot worse than anything he's going to do. And I've put that in him, and I put the fear of God, if you want to call it that, about lying to me since he's 3. And so far, so good.
All right. Well, our new podcast.
I haven't caught him yet.
The Sick Podcast, our new Sick Podcast coming out next week. Raising Children. Yep, it's lovely. But I guess we'll get back to New York City FC. Just the awful news. And, we both know him quite well. And you get an opportunity to speak to him a little bit more thoroughly because of the language barrier. But Maxi Morales with a torn ACL at 36. It's the older you are, the more difficult it is to recover. But he's very fit. He seems very determined. So no one's going to discount the possibility of Maxi coming back and performing next year. But what an awful bit of news about a week ago.
Absolutely. I got a chance to chat with him last week after it happened. And he said that it's going to be an 8 to 9 month process. When I spoke to you about it, you said it should take a little bit longer. We'll see, what happens if it is the 8 to 9 month process. And then at that point, he's got to start doing training camp. And so then what we're looking at probably end of March, beginning of April, return for him for his last year of his contract with New York City FC. That's the optimistic view. It could wind up being May or June if it's not optimistic.
Yeah, and the reason I said, we had a little exchange on that one, you and I, the more modern approach, it seems to me, and this is in talking to physicians recently and surgeons, is it's more 10 to 12 months that they want to be very secure with the fact that it's ready to go. And I guess there's been enough instances or incidents where the repeating of the injury has occurred where it's just becoming a little bit more cautious. And we're talking professional athletes here. I'm not talking about, you and me. I'm talking about people getting back on the playing field. Rutgers University players just coming back. She's on 10 months. So it used to be in that 6 to 8 months, man, they'd really push it. So, but Maxi, I'm telling you, being, Maxi and I being a little shorter of frame, you do recover from these things a little more quickly. You just do.
It's for instance, Eber had something sort of similar, probably not as severe as Maxi's actually, but and it took him a long time to get back, and he was in and around the original schedule on the latter side of the original schedule. But the difference that you notice is really the size of the legs. So I was always looking, and we talked about it, he and I, the size of his leg that was injured versus the size of the leg that wasn't injured. And it basically becomes muscle mass, and how much muscle mass you lose and how much you can rebuild in that time. And there was a difference that I would say was almost significant. So, the thing is that Maxi's game isn't really about sprinting and and quickness. I mean, it's not as much as you may have to be a forward that you have to react to something in the box or something like that. It's slightly different. So maybe he comes back a little bit quicker from all of this. Plus, it's personal time, right? For some people, recover quicker than others, and it just really depends upon your body.
Well, I think he's more of a cutting type player, which, to look at the flip side of that, might make it even more difficult because you're doing those sharp sudden turns, which is really critical to his game. Well, however it goes for him is, we just hope the surgery goes well. As far as we know, that hasn't even occurred yet. So whenever this 8 months and more cycle starts, it starts upon surgery, and the recovery will start right away. So Maxey was brought in. We heard Nick Cushing say to both of us, excuse me, Roberto. But we heard him say
choked up. I mean, he'll be fine.
He'll be fine. But Nick told us that, remember how he said it was just Maxey's just going to play, we're just putting him in there. Maxey was going to be in there every game for the rest of the way to help guide this playoff possibility. And now he's not. There certainly are options, but I think they were really counting on his playmaking and his leadership. And you could see it in the last game against Vancouver and the game prior. He's leading out there, and he's turning around and saying, "Why aren't you pressing with me?" And you could just see it. You could see that it was important.
Well, without a doubt, and it made the attack a little bit more precise. More opportunities being created, and he's a maestro out there. He's the leader of the band. He's putting people in the right position, and although he didn't have anything to do with the goal, it was a beautiful, perfect pass by Santi Rodriguez to Mansour Bakrar, and he put it in. He went 5-hole on it. It was a nice goal. Too bad New York City couldn't hold the lead against Vancouver. They probably should have, but they didn't. And so, they put themselves in a position where it's still now tougher to get into the playoffs. But, we keep on saying the same thing after every game, or at least I do. You win your next game. And that's what they got to do. And the next game is the Hudson River Derby, September 16th, 3:30. Be there, aloha, at Yankee Stadium.
And that's why you're going to not be happy when I tell you on our next show what we're going to do. And we're going to do it. If you want to back off and just let me run the whole thing, that's fine. But we're going to look at every playoff possibility in terms of what the remaining schedule is for all the teams that are close to the playoffs. We're going to predict how many points they'll get, within a range. And then we'll see who's in the top 9 based on what we predict. So you have to do a little homework. You got to see who's injured. You got to see who's playing. You have to do all this, Roberto. If you don't want to do it, we'll just go to a solo shot here, like a single shot, and I'll do it. I'm going to make some graphs. Sammy is going to help.
No. What we'll do is that you can do all that. I'll stay here, and I'll be like, sure, okay, good, yeah, fine. I'll be the public. I'll react.
Well, you're the one. You're the one that tells me I'm not fun enough sometimes. Well, this is fun. It's a fun activity. So let's do it.
I'm happy that you're going to enjoy it.
Now, I want to go back to something Nick said after the last game. I think it was Michael Ander from Blue City Radio who asked a question about consistency in the lineup. And I thought it was very interesting what Nick said. He said throughout his time as a head coach, so he's referring to Manchester City mostly, and then a little bit as an interim coach, he said he didn't do a lot of rotation, but he felt that this year it looks like he's a coach that likes rotation because – and he didn't say it this way, but I'm going to say it this way. When you're not sure what you're going to get from a player game in and game out, it's very, very difficult. And I'd like you maybe to list, or we'll list together, who have been the players that you can count on game in and game out, whether it's not so much effort, but just effectiveness, playing, within whatever the game plan is. And that's been the issue. And that's why he's had a rotation. So his point was, the question was asked about rotation is like, well, this is like a game I didn't really rotate. I put Santi Rodriguez in for Richie Ledesma, which is not that shocking. And then it was the rest of the 11. So he really, rotation was not the word in this last game. And, they got a result, but didn't get the result they wanted, really.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they needed 3 points. And again, two more points wasted at home that they've lost at home, which is so unusual for this team because this is a team that has done extremely well playing at Yankee Stadium or Citi Field or even Red Bull Arena. So to watch them, not just win almost by rote is sort of alarming in a way and interesting in a weird way. They've only won 6 games all year long. And, we're not used to this. Even back in 2015, it wasn't like this. And it's just been a tough road. And there is a lack of consistency. Who are the guys who have been there like every game, and you can really, before Gabi Pereira left, right? I mean, the two guys who have been probably the most consistent all year long have been Thiago Martins and Keaton Parks. So those are guys that have been in that lineup in and out. And if you look throughout the year, I mean, they haven't been replaced unless they were injured or something was off. But otherwise, I mean, they're there the whole time. Keaton Parks going into, the last game was the minutes leader in all of MLS. So you talk about consistency, and you talk about somebody who's been there for the entire time. It's really been him, and Thiago Martins isn't far behind.
Yeah. So Parks is the one you point to as far as the consistency. Martins too, and prior to Maxime Chanot's departure, I think you were getting a very consistent effort from him game in and game out. But I'm almost talking from start of the season to now, and I don't think you can go much past Parks or Martins to look for consistency. Pereira was your goal scorer. Sandy Rodriguez has not maybe reached the level that we had hoped this year also, but he's going to have to get back at it because it's either him or Ledesma in for Maxi now to try to run things out of the number 10. So I would imagine it's going to be Rodriguez.
So here's a question for you. Do you give, I mean, obviously it really depends upon how they practice, and we don't get to see practice more than once a week. And this week we're only going to get it. We're not getting to see practice at all. We won't see it till next week. But do you at some point try to put Tyler Magno back on left wing and say, hey, you're probably our most talented player. Let's put you back in a position that you played well at last year, and let's see if we can get something out of you there, which means, by the way, benching Ledesma and putting Santi back at the 10.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked because you've got all this time now in between games to sort Tylus out, to see how it's going in training. And I would imagine what happens in training. And we don't know. I tried to ask this question too, whether there's been any sort of a friendly played or outside of an interest squad, just to help, keep some sort of a rhythm, but also see, how people like a Magno are going to respond. So I think that's, I think it's very possible and maybe the right thing to do, Roberto, depending on how everything's gone with him. And you put something up, and then I put it up on our pregame live before the Vancouver game about Tylus, smiling and hugging Monsef Bakrar, a really nice picture of him after a game that he didn't even participate in. And, I thought that was, significant, because you want him to be a good teammate, despite the fact it's been a really difficult year for him.
It has, and let's remember, it wasn't that long ago where he had a difficult week of training, if we want to put it that way, and he was left out of the 20 for the game against Philadelphia, and he was sitting in the stands in that game, and and rooting on the team. So, and then after that, he practiced very well, and then he got himself back into the 20, but what used to be the 18 before the 5 lineup changes and all of that. But, he's your most talented player, most likely. And so you've got to give him, hopefully, a chance to find his game. And if he does, then maybe New York City's attack becomes a little bit deadlier as opposed to the one goal a game that they're averaging right now, which is significantly lower than in their best years when Tati Castellanos was around.
So there was an article published, I think it was MLSsoccer.com. The author was Larry Henry Jr., and it was about MLS Next Pro guys who might be promoted to the first team before the end of the season. And one guy that was listed was MD Myers, who is on New York City FC 2. He was in preseason with the senior team, but then was released, then signed with the 2 team, and now is the leading scorer in MLS Next Pro with 17 goals. Let's, Sammy, throw up his transfer market statistics here. And this is kind of what he's done this year. As they play Columbus on a Friday night, we're recording this on Friday, so there's a big game for New York City 2 tonight also. They're just below the playoff line, but there you see some of the things. 17 goals, 4 assists in 25 games. That's 21 goal contributions, almost 1 a game. and and he's played almost 100% of the minutes, so he's durable. And you can see he's part of over a third of all the goals scored by NYCFC 2. But in my response to Larry Henry Jr., unless he's talked to Nick Cushing and David Lee, and unless Nick Cushing has had a bit of a change of heart, because earlier in the year, it just wasn't a consideration. And that's before Monsef Bakrar arrived. That's when there wasn't a striker. And Gabe Siegel, who's now gone, and he'll get a chance to play some minutes in Israel. And, it's my response to Larry Henry is it's not going to happen, probably, unless something has changed.
Unless something has changed, because now we've got to look at the team. Gabe Siegel has been sent to Israel, right? So now he's on loan over there. So now you don't have a backup striker again. So
that's right.
Does New York City? Do you give him a chance? I mean, at this point, what do you have to lose? The guy's scoring 17 goals. Maybe there's something there that can help. I remember that when we went to the coaches convention, and I wound up hanging out like all day long with Paul Caligiuri. And Paul Caligiuri knew MD Myers very, very well. And he could not stop singing the praises. And then I went up to Nick and I was like, I was with Paul Caligiuri, and he's like really high on MD Myers. And we just cut him. And I'm like, oh, God. Okay, fine. But they re-signed him, put it on NYCFC 2. And look, scoring 17 goals there. I mean, why not give him a chance? I mean, maybe he's not going to be the guy who goes in for Monsef Bakrar, and takes that position away from him. But maybe he's somebody who could come off the bench and actually do something. Maybe he's learned a lot within these past, few months that he's been with the team.
I guess they just, whatever they saw in preseason, didn't think that he was ready. And, look, you evaluate somebody through the course of a season. The thing about him is that he scores wherever he goes. Can I tell you a quick Caligiuri story? First of all, maybe not everybody in the listening or watching knows who Paul Caligiuri is. That's very possible. But he scored the goal heard round the world. He scored the goal at Trinidad and Tobago that put the U.S. men in 1990. Well, the goal was scored in 89 in qualifiers. But they made the World Cup in 1990 for the first time in 40 years. And it was such a landmark moment. And it also helped the U.S. become hosts in 94 and then eventually lead to Major League Soccer.
The most important goal ever scored for the United States. And I'll still hold that.
Well, the story continues, though, because I was invited. You'd love this. I was invited to do an ODP camp in Hawaii by a guy named George Kuntz. Yeah, I know. And I said, yeah. I got paid. I got everything. I got expenses paid for. It was the greatest job assignment ever. But this is a totally true story. So I'm checking in at the hotel, Roberto, and I'm there, and they say the room number. I say my name, the room number, and I've got my bags and everything. And also I get a tap on the shoulder. And I turned around. Now, I know Paul Caligiuri. He doesn't know me for nothing. And he goes, you're Glenn? I go, yeah. You're my roommate? I said, yes. He goes, put your stuff away upstairs. Put your bathing trunks on. We're going snorkeling. I kid you not. And we've been brothers ever since. So when you bring up Paul, I'm so fond of him. And that was we just snorkeled all week before we. There's this place called Hanoma Bay in Oahu. I got to go back someday because it was just ridiculous. But anyway, that's my.
I'm sure he's such a quality guy, such a good guy, and I'm really, really happy that it's him who has scored the most important goal in the history of the United States national team, because good guys deserve good things, and he's one of them.
And you probably talked to JB Della Camera, who's on the call, and just the primitive setup for that broadcast. And kind of had to, they weren't even sure if they were going to get on the air, and the electricity wasn't working. And
we've been there. We did that in Guatemala.
Well, that's true. We've had our own. Our own experience with that.
Yes, my iPhone setting up as a hotspot got us on for the second half of that game.
Unbelievable. MLS schedule. There's 5 games during the international break. International break. International break, including Inter Miami. They've got half their team on international duty, but they do have Sergi Busquets still. They still have Jordi Alba. And now there's this whole thing with Lionel Messi, who at the top we talked about, he scored this, we didn't really describe, but it's a wonderful free kick goal to give Argentina a 1-0 win over Ecuador. Happened in the 78th minute, so it's late in the game. But he took himself out of the game in the 89th minute, Roberto. So the word is that he was fatigued. But there's also a quote out there. I don't know where all this came from, that he said to somebody that he felt something. So now everybody's freaking out, so who knows? But there's also this, they play Bolivia next at 11,000 feet. So it's very difficult to breathe. Messi played there once and was puking on the sideline during the course of the game. But this might be the chance to bring him back, and maybe he plays a little bit in this match against Sporting KC. It's probably not going to happen, but
I think he's totally missing this match. Either way, I mean, he's played an incredible amount of minutes in a very short period of time. Let's remember, he's 36 years old. He's not exactly a spring chicken, and he didn't really have much of a preseason. He had like a 10-day preseason. And for him to be able to do what he's doing, and it's not only in MLS, but now he's done it at the World Cup qualifier level, right, is just absolutely, absolutely amazing. And so, you want to conserve him. You got to give him a break, and we'll see what happens. It's not going to be an easy game for Inter Miami and Sporting KC. Alan Pulido's doing very well for Sporting KC. They're fighting also to maintain themselves in a playoff spot. So we'll see what happens, but it's going to be a pretty interesting game. By the way, they're also missing Benja Cremaschi, because Cremaschi is with the United States national team. So he's a dual national that is being now courted by the U.S. national team, where he's playing now, and he's also being courted by the Argentine national team. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Greg Berhalter and the U.S. national team setup have been very, very good about convincing dual nationals to continue playing with the United States. They don't lose many players. Once they have a chance to get them. So we're going to see what happens, if he plays, how he plays, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see if with that they can convince him to stick around with the U.S. Because if he does, I mean, it gives a lot more depth and quality depth to the right wing on the U.S. national team, behind Weah, maybe behind Reyna, depending how you want to set it up, because it could be Weah, it could be Reyna. I mean, you still considering Paul Arriola, Jordan Morris into that situation. You could switch Pulisic over to there and then use somebody else on the left wing, like Brendan Aronson. I mean, there's a lot of, and this is really good. There is a lot of flexibility, all right, within the U.S. national team setup, right, as far as all those front players. They all play multiple positions and can play them well. So Greg Berhalter, has an interesting setup for that.
Well, my opinion is Cremaschi's not nearly ready. To have him in camp is to get him to, see the environment, and who knows if he'll ever be part of the full team on either side. I think his value right now is overstated. He's a good player. I mean, we've watched him. Watched him quite a bit recently, because everybody's watching the Inter Miami games. But a bigger loss is Diego Gomez. A bigger loss is Joseph Martinez. I mean, those guys aren't available for Inter Miami either. And so that's Saturday night at 8:30. The U.S. men are also playing Saturday night against Uzbekistan, as Roberto was talking about.
5:30 game.
5:30 Eastern? Is that right?
I think it's 5:30 Eastern, that game, unless I looked at it wrong and it was 5:30 Pacific or something. But I think it's 5:30 Eastern.
All right, Roberto, let's go kicking it around. I want to be a lobbyist. That's how I'm going to start this one off.
How's that kicking it around, by the way?
Pardon?
How's that kicking it around? That's still NYCFC.
No, it's another subject area. Are you kidding? And stop questioning what I'm doing with kicking it around, would you?
God.
No.
You didn't ask me about this. Fine, let's go.
Well, you'll know because you know these things. I have to tell you, Roberto, and at my age, you figure he must know what a lobbyist is and does, but I didn't because I've just ignored it all my life. I don't really care.
Oh,
but then
that's a mistake.
But then I read this. I read this story by Andrew Lee with Hudson River Blue. They're doing a great job covering a lot of different things.
Yes,
and
they are.
It was this very detailed look about how the lobbyists have worked, but more specifically have been paid in regard to this soccer-specific stadium. Monthly stipends of $20,000. You got to register with the state to be a lobbyist. So CFG and NYCFC, according to Andrew in this story, have spent $3.25 million lobbying local officials and politicians for this soccer stadium. And that's since the franchise was born in 2013. But I thought the more intriguing part of the story was the fact that they're paying lobbyists more. Those CFG in New York City are paying lobbyists more now than they were before the stadium was announced. And so here was the quote. Let's put this up, and people that are watching maybe can read through this. New York City has spent years playing the New York government lobbying game and don't appear to be slowing down now that the Willets Point Stadium plans have been announced. The opposite appears true as the team increases its spending on lobbying and brings new firms with favorable political alignments into the fold as the city's complex, fraught land approval process still looms as a hurdle to clear. Well written by Andrew. So
that's important.
So we know
key.
Because
the point is that so they've done most of the hard work, but now you got to push the project over the line. The ERLAP situation is very, very important. You got to make sure that everybody is aligned on this and that you get favorable, that you're in good favor and good stead with local business, obviously with the local politicians and community leaders. You've got to be in good stead. And so this is where you're using lobbyists to make sure that you stay that way, but also that you do a lot of work on the ground to make sure that they view you in a favorable way. So one of the things that was written there, and it was very interesting, is how, for instance, the U.S. Open is being played virtually in the same area as where the stadium is being built, yet there are very few benefits that the Queens community is getting. So people are commuting from Manhattan into the stadium and then back to Manhattan. And so like all the restaurants in Jackson Avenue there, or Jackson Heights, rather, Roosevelt Avenue, aren't benefiting as much as, they would like to, although the tennis tournament is a $1 billion business for New York City for the 2 weeks and change that it's here in New York City. I mean, that is amazing. What kind of benefit that the city gets. So what New York City FC has to do now is not only make sure that they keep the politicians in good favor and all of that, but also they got to start taking care of, businesses and schools and things like that, the community in general, in Corona, in Jackson Heights, in that whole area. So to be able to push it, they've got to be somebody positive for the area, right? And not only just looking out for themselves. And so far, that's what they seem to be doing. It's the right thing to do. I'm proud of the fact that we're associated with a team that is doing the right thing. And let's hope that continues and that the process is able to be pushed over the line. Although we still have to remember that Steve Cohen and the Mets are trying to push themselves into this process because they want to build a casino on parkland that's really parking lots in and around Citi Field, but they're losing that game to the area near the Nassau Coliseum, which is favored by New York State to get the casino license. So that's where that stands. And right now, it's very favorable for Long Island and Nassau County and the Nassau Coliseum, not as favorable at all, and losing it substantially, Steve Cohen and the Mets.
Well, he needs to get better lobbyists, obviously. I mean, that's the
so the article itself said that I think he had put in either 1.3 or 1.7 million dollars in lobbying this year alone. That's not going to cut it. That's not going to cut it because I don't think that the community really wants that there. And I think that they've done a much better job based on the article that I read. I think it was in the Outfield, actually, or maybe it was the Village Voice. It was one of the two. There have been so many articles out here about these things that that Long Island has positioned itself in much, much better. Also, the fact that, these are licenses. I think there are 4 that are coming down from New York State. And they were able to spread them out more by putting it in Long Island versus Queens, because it looks like someone in Manhattan, Times Square, is going to get one as well. So there's all of these things going around. And yes, there's politicking and laboring, and, lobbying rather. So
hey, I can lobby.
We'll see. As long as they don't screw up the New York City proposal as it's going through, and he doesn't try to push himself through and they can keep him away, that's fine.
All right. Well, I'm putting in my formal application to be a lobbyist for City Football Group and New York City FC.
Hey, I speak 2 languages, so just saying.
That's fine. You can.
Saying.
You could be my assistant
here.
You have assistant lobbyists. You could be my assistant.
Oh, really?
Hey, I've had to lobby.
My assistant.
I've had to lobby for budgets for years in all different things I've given. So I think I can handle. All right. Alexander Collins. This came out. I don't know if it was a surprise. I don't know if you knew any of this, but all of a sudden, Sammy, put him up there. He's going to Greece. There he is in his AEK Athens kit. Nice.
So he's going with Matias Almeida, who used to be the coach at the San Jose Earthquakes, and before that with Chivas. He'll probably know a couple of the players there because Orbelín Pineda played for the Mexican national team. He's there, and so is ex-Miami, Inter Miami CF player Rodolfo Pizarro, who wanted to stay for free in Miami to play next to Messi, and they said, nah, gone. And he wound up going to AEK in Greece with Almeida, and so they'll be there. They're right now, I think, in 6th or 5th place. The Greek season just started.
They've only played 2. They've played
3 games or 2 games.
No, I looked it up. They've played 2 games. They're in 6th place. And Almeida, you forgot he was at River Plate too, wasn't he?
He actually took them from 2nd division to 1st division, and he is an absolute hero at River Plate.
Nice. And I tried to figure out. I wanted to look back and see if he coached against Collins when Alexander was at New York City. And I think it was just one game. I came up with September of 2019, and New York City won 2-1 at Yankee Stadium. And you just look back. You look back at these things, and you always go like, oh wow, I forgot about that. Keaton Parks scored his first career goal in that game, and Alexandru Mitrița, he scored the game winner, and Wando scored for the Quakes, and Almeida was hired by Athens just a month after he was fired by the Quakes. So he's a guy that was going to get picked up, I guess, no matter what.
Oh, for sure. And he had offers in Mexico, and Chivas wanted him back, but I think he wanted a different sort of challenge. So how is this about falling upwards? He goes from Spain, right, playing in one of the top leagues in the world. He goes to Greece, which not one of the top leagues in the world, but, a decent league in Europe for sure. But now he gets a chance to play Champions League soccer.
Yeah. Unbelievable. They won the double last year. That is wild.
Good for Alex. I'm very happy for him.
Maybe even wilder, and we'll close it with this, Roberto. Look, by the time this airs, this match will already be concluded. But Maxime Chinot starting for Luxembourg, Gudmundur Thorarinsson on the bench for Iceland. At halftime, as of this recording, Luxembourg is up 1-0. Guess who scored? Guess who scored from the penalty spot? From the penalty spot.
Good for Maxime.
Maxime Chinot. Yep.
Now he's going to be a star in Ajaccio. So there you go.
And you put out
France's second division.
You put out today the kid Lamine Yamal, 16 years old, the youngest player to ever score for Spain today. For Barca.
Oh, he actually got a goal. I had to come and do this, so yeah. I left the game and it was like 4-1 at that.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you, they won 7-1, and he scored the 7th goal.
All right.
Yeah.
16 years old. Wait till I tell my son, who's 17.
I do that too, Roberto. You see all these young, and then you go look at your kid and go like, "Hey,
by
what
the
were
way,
you doing?"
He's 16 playing for Spain. What the hell are you doing today? No, he actually made his team, so I'm very happy. He made environmental studies. He made his team, so he's wearing number 17. So very happy. I thought it was for my birthday because my birthday is February 17, but no, it turns out that it's for some player in Manchester United. So there.
You're putting your birthday out publicly? Is that so? Now you should say, please keep the gifts under $50. You know, otherwise I'd be embarrassed.
Trust me, there's not going to be gifts. There's no.
I might send you one.
You've had 8 years to do that, and nothing's ever shown up.
Yeah.
Except
but
for
I always know when your birthday is. Somehow it gets out there. I don't know how, but it gets out there. All right, Roberto. Well, when we next we're adjourning now, but when we next get together, we'll spend more time on the Hudson River Derby, and some of the things that New York City has to do in order to get into the playoffs. But it's a massive match for two reasons. One, it's the Derby, but the other is that they're both dying for the points, so it's going to be good.
Yeah, the Red Bulls have been pretty bad lately. They got smoked in Philly, and Nealis got red carded in that game, so he won't be able to play against the New York City FC. And whoever scores the first goal wins. It's just going to be as simple as that.
All right, I'll remember that, Roberto. Well, that's it, man. Hey, have a nice rest of the day. Thank you for joining us, everybody. For Roberto Abramowitz, I'm Glenn Crooks on NYCFC Views.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.